Welcome back to Chow Time Pods. Your host, Red. And get videos today from Alexander Grace.
One of the funniest things I realized is I don't like men. I love bullying them. Like, I love terrorizing them. I love being an absolute menace to them.
Can you imagine me? I love being a menace to women. I love using and abusing them and running through them and bullying them. I'd get canceled immediately. Someone might actually clip that.
Like, imagine a relationship where I could just mercilessly bully a man. And every now and then, maybe I'll like put my head on his shoulder. But any other moment, I'm mercilessly bullying him.
Like the psychotic smile that she had when she was saying all that. Like, just look at her face right now. This is a face of a demon. As P always says, high level demon right here.
I love that. I love that.
Do you want to know what happens when you make it culturally accepting to say things like masculinity is toxic? Men are the oppressors. Not every man, but always a man. This is what happens. All of women's pain, all their emotions, their angst, their trauma, all of their repressed shame and fury, it all gets channeled into hating men. Why? Yep. Because men have been designated the group that it is socially acceptable to hate. You are allowed to bully them. We have offered them up as a sacrifice for you to use them as an outlet for your hatred and anger and frustration. For you guys who read the George Orwell book, 1984, do you remember the scene where all of the citizens in Oceania encouraged to scream abuse and throw all of their hatred for 2 minutes at this figure? It's this ritual where they are shown a picture of the enemy and it's just like 2 minutes of like viciousness. It is a man.
That is... Damn, I haven't seen that movie in a long time. Oh my God. The stark similarities are crazy.
Mandatory expression of anger. Everybody's screaming and yelling and getting physical, and the party makes everybody do this because it's very effective. It's very useful, but of course in the modern era we don't need to force women to express their hatred to men. They just go on social media without anybody asking them to, and they just volunteer it. They just confess it.
I think men should start off in jail, prove their way into society, that they're good people. We can release them.
That sounds a little man-hating, don't you think?
There's more bad men than there are bad women. I think men should start off in jail, prove that they're good men, and then they can be, released into society. And I think women should...
That's like one of the most sexist, man-hating, misandrous things
That's not
I've
true,
ever.
no.
Why do these women even bother denying it? What's the point? They are so obviously sexist and bigoted in their opinions, and they are so comfortable expressing these kind of feminist, fascist ideals that they have. There's no shame, there's no fear. My question is, at what point do we stop believing the line that we have been force-fed, that this is just a reaction to their victimization? This is women struggling to know how to deal with living in the patriarchy.
I've never said anything about that. Who the hell says that?
This is because her great-great-grandmother couldn't vote. I mean, fuck off. Give me a break. At what point do we stop making excuses and actually admit what the real motivation is here?
So earlier this year, I decided to fix my relationship with men and start listening to them a little bit more and stop being so defensive about everything that they say. And the more I speak to men and the more I become friends with them and hear their viewpoints, the lesser of a feminist I become. I feel like I don't resonate with being a feminist.
It's funny that the brown ladies, especially the Asian brown, the Indian ladies and stuff, I notice a lot. They go against the grain harshly. I have dated a few Indian women. They were super against culture. They were so adamant that they didn't like their Indian culture. They didn't like the conservativeness of anything. They were super liberal. They were gorgeous, so I slept with them on the first night because they're super liberal. But, again, sleeping with an Indian woman on the first night, can you imagine that in a sense of Indian culture? it's not a thing. Well, I don't know. Maybe it's not a thing. I just think of it, Asian culture is just like, yeah, women aren't sleeping around like that. But when women here in the West, a lot of them, Asian culture, doesn't matter what culture you come from, they get westernized and become like white liberal women, pretty much. It's crazy.
Anymore. So now I'm a misandrist, and a very proud one.
You can tell that she thinks she's just delivered some kind of like clever mic drop, but I got news for you. There's no difference between a feminist and a misandrist.
Nope.
You haven't changed anything. Feminism is a hate group, and we need to become comfortable calling it that. This widespread cultural gaslighting has got to stop. Feminists are not noble activists motivated by a desire for justice and equality. Feminism is a movement of hate that intentionally dehumanizes men to justify stripping them of their rights. It is no longer acceptable to just point to your 18-year-old cousin who says that she's a feminist and she's sweet and naive and she just believes in equal rights and then says, well, therefore, because she calls that feminism, that's okay. No, what's actually happening is that feminist fascists are pointing at her to distract us from what's really going on, what feminism has actually morphed into. I want to show you something. These are 10 objective criteria that can be used to distinguish whether or not something is a hate movement or a rights movement. You can pause it and have a read of it if you're really interested, but I'll just tell you, you're a hate group if you advocate for restricting the rights of others, if you endorse violence towards the out group, if you use dehumanizing language. So as an experiment, I then asked Claude to use data from the last 20 years to determine, using those 10 criteria, whether feminism and men's rights activism fall into the category of a hate group or a rights group. In part 2 of this video, I go through all 10 of these criteria, all of these answers in a lot of detail if you're interested in that kind of depth. But skipping ahead to the results, it judged that for all 10 criteria, men's rights activists clearly met the definition of a rights movement. The core grievances hold up to...
Damn, 0 out of fucking 10. That's pretty damn good, and 10 out of 10. My men.
Empirical scrutiny. There's no dehumanization or advocacy for violence against the outgroup.
I have never said for you guys to be violent towards women. Just avoid them.
Tolerance of internal variations. You can look through the results there. But essentially, men's rights as a movement is ideologically clean. We are what we say we are. Now compare that to feminism. In contrast, it only scored a 1 out of 10 for meeting the criteria of a rights movement. In 9 out of 10 criteria, it cleanly maps onto the characteristics of a hate group. Again, there's a full discussion of all of the details of that in part 2. But it's really just confirming what we already know. When you think of the word feminist that comes into your mind, you're not thinking of some beautiful, kind model expression of femininity who just radiates inclusion and caring and nurturing. No, the image that most people have when they hear the word feminist is an angry, spiteful, vindictive woman who quite ironically lacks any obvious femininity. Now, the mainstream has been gaslighting us for decades and saying the fact that we hold that as a stereotype, that's like evidence of some kind of deficiency in us, like it's our fault that we have eyes and ears and we notice things. But this stereotype did not arise from nowhere. The reason we have such a negative view of feminists is because that's our experience. You maybe have never called it this before. You haven't reached for this kind of vocabulary, but you know it. You know it as cleanly as the truth of gravity. Feminism is a hate group. They are motivated by a hatred of men. They are not fighting for equality. They are fighting for female supremacy and male subjugation. And they
100%.
are vicious to anybody who stands in their way. If we extend the absolute maximum benefit of the doubt to these women and say that they don't know that they are part of a hate group, it's just an issue of ignorance. You know, they're just naive and they just happen to be mistaken. Okay, but then why is it that every time that ignorance is corrected, when men offer proof, when they bring up facts, when we talk about male suffering and we expose the lies of feminism, how they manipulate statistics and attack people who speak out about like domestic violence against men. If this is just a case of being naive and being mistaken, why is it that when presented with that information, feminists don't concede, they double down? They become more irate, more angry. That doesn't sound like ignorance or an innocent mistake to me. I feel like I'm getting a bit overheated, a bit too passionate in this video.
Excuse me. It happens. It happens. Sometimes I watch a video and I'm just like, I try not to cut or pause that much of my videos, but sometimes I've actually had to pause and take a moment and then come back into the video because I was just so upset.
We were talking about whether feminists know that they're part of a hate group and whether it can be excused by ignorance. I just encourage you to look into your own lives for data. Just consider the conversations that you have had with women when you have responded to her feminist talking points, explained where she's factually mistaken, and observe the way that she responded. Did she respond with gratitude because she was glad to be cured of her ignorance? Was she open-minded? Was she curious? Did she ask you any follow-up questions? Did she engage with her own research afterwards? Or did she respond to you with emotion, with anger, with hatred? Or what about the next excuse that most feminism is very, very moderate, that the extreme elements only exist on the fringes? But if that's the case, then why is it when people say things like men are evil on mainstream podcasts, the comment sections are filled with nothing but women applauding and celebrating that kind of language?
Men are evil. That is true. Like man as a whole is evil. Like just as an entity, a general idea. Like it's okay if we say that out loud. It's okay if we say that men are inherently evil. It's like, it's not all men, but for some reason, always a man. Every time something terrible happens, always a man, like 99% of the time.
People want to pretend that mainstream feminism isn't hateful or radical, but just do a poll of the women around you, just whether they identify as a feminist or not. Ask them whether or not they believe that women who claim to be victims of sexual assault are unfairly discriminated against in our system, which demands due process and evidence. Ask them who they believe are the primary victims of domestic violence. Ask them if they think that domestic violence is caused inherently by masculinity. Ask them if they believe in a guaranteed equal custody arrangement between mother and father. Do you see the genius of the fraud that has been perpetrated upon us? Because what feminism has managed to do is it has shifted the Overton window so far in their favor that genuinely hateful, ridiculous, unfair positions are just considered normal. Yeah, of course. That's just regular. There's nothing extreme about that. Really, framing violence as an inherent trait of an entire gender, that's not hateful, that's not extreme. The fact that women are more likely to be violent in relationships, that doesn't shift you at all. You don't think that it's
We talk about lesbian relationships all the time.
an extreme position that women can abort their child without the permission from a father? But if she chooses to have him, he has to pay child support for 18 years, even though he had no say in the whole thing? You think it's reasonable that men have to fight to access their own children after a divorce? This just seems normal to you. Nothing hateful, nothing unfair, nothing extreme about any of these positions. The point I am trying to make is that what feminism presents itself to be as just a normal, rational, moderate position to take is bullshit. They keep telling you that it's normal, that it's about fairness, in order to hide how fucking crazy unfair it is. Feminism as an ideology, as a position to hold, is not moderate. It is inherently extreme. You cannot justify these positions with reference to the evidence. We have tangible data on the number of false accusations that women make, particularly during a divorce proceeding or a child custody hearing. We know that female-female relationships are significantly more violent than heterosexual or male-male relationships, and that when there is non-reciprocal violence in a relationship, 70% of the time it is the woman. And we know that children raised by single mothers vastly underperform compared to children raised by single fathers. Not even close. If you are a feminist, then it is clearly not evidence that is informing your positions. It's hatred, and pretending like this is a fringe issue is a complete red herring.
If I'm going to go on a date with a man, I am only open to experiencing the benefits of the patriarchy. If I have to pay to hang out with a man, I'm not going. The thought of that makes me want to yak. Excuse me, sir. I am only going to participate in these patriarchal shenanigans if it's for the free. Why would I pay to participate in the shenanigans? It makes no sense.
It is considered conventional, mainstream, feminist orthodoxy that we live in a patriarchy, that masculinity is toxic and that men are just trying to hoard all the power for themselves. They want all the privilege and they want to keep women down. I've said this in a previous video, I've said this in this video, and I'm going to say it again. Watch what happens when you treat a woman's accusation as a confession. Is it really men who are thinking in terms of power, trying to establish some kind of gender supremacy? Do you think that's really what the men's rights activists are talking about? That they're trying to lock in their privilege? That's what's motivating them? Is that what we're doing? Or is that what feminism is doing? Crafting a narrative that exists independent of evidence, creating principles that were never intended to be applied universally, creating a value system that on the one hand justifies the mistreatment and stripping of the rights of men, while at the same time disguising the hatred that they feel by framing that movement as though it's a fight for justice and equality.
Simply put, if a man tells me that he hates women, I know that he's dangerous. If a woman tells me that she hates men, I know it's just because she's been emotionally done wrong. I don't care if a woman says, I hate men. In fact, I encourage her, you should hate men.
Okay, let's recap. In this video so far, I've covered how designating men as the enemy gives women an outlet for their emotional venting. I've explained why ignorance doesn't hold up as an excuse for women who are part of this hate group of feminism. And I've also explained why this is not some fringe extremist position. In part 2, I want to go into more of the detail of what I explored earlier, the 10 criteria of whether or not you're a rights group or a hate group.
It was crazy that he compared the 1984 scene with how women just globally just come together to hate men and spew hate on men to as a monolith of the bad guy. It is so the same. We are living in 1984. Big brother is now big sister. Please like, subscribe, comment down below. I really appreciate that, and catch you guys next time. Ciao.